I was a waiter fired for bad service, but the real crime was what I witnessed behind those kitchen doors every single night. The termination happened on a Tuesday evening during the dinner rush. I had been carrying 3 plates of overpriced pasta when Marcus, the head manager, appeared beside me with that familiar sneer carved across his face. His finger pointed toward the back office like a weapon. The plates trembled slightly in my hands, not from nerves but from the rage already building in my chest. The office smelled of stale coffee and Marcus's cheap cologne. He sat behind his cluttered desk, surrounded by invoices and health department certificates that I now knew were meaningless pieces of paper. His eyes never met mine as he delivered the news. Performance issues, customer complaints, effective immediately. I set my apron on the desk with deliberate precision. Marcus finally looked up, expecting some kind of breakdown or pleading. Instead, he found my face completely calm, my breathing steady. That seemed to unnerve him more than tears would have. The real reason for my firing had nothing to do with service quality. 3 weeks earlier, I had questioned why we were still serving seafood that had been sitting in the walk-in cooler for 6 days. Marcus had pulled me aside then, his voice low and threatening. Mind your own business. Do your job. Serve the food. I had been serving food for 8 months at Bellacourt, Marcus's crown jewel restaurant in the upscale district. The place attracted food critics, local politicians, and anyone willing to pay $40 for a piece of fish that cost $3 wholesale. The dining room gleamed under soft lighting. The servers moved with choreographed precision, and the presentation of every dish looked like art. But I had seen what happened in the kitchen. Walking to my car that night, I felt the weight of my phone in my pocket. For weeks, I had been taking pictures. Not because I planned some elaborate revenge. At first, it was just insurance. Protection against the day Marcus decided I knew too much. Now those photos felt like ammunition. The first image showed chicken breasts sitting uncovered on a prep table for 4 hours during the lunch rush. The second captured Rodriguez, the sous chef, washing vegetables in the same sink where raw meat had been thawed an hour earlier. The third was my masterpiece, a close-up of the hand sanitizer dispenser that had been empty for 2 weeks, while Marcus told health inspectors that hygiene was our top priority. I spent the next morning in my apartment, laptop open, systematically organizing every piece of evidence I had collected. 47 photographs, detailed notes with dates and times, names of staff members who had witnessed violations. The pattern was clear. This wasn't negligence. This was a systematic decision to prioritize profit over safety, with Marcus orchestrating every corner-cutting measure. The health department's website looked official and intimidating, with forms that promised thorough investigation and swift action. I started filling out the complaint form, then stopped. A single complaint might get lost in bureaucratic shuffle. Marcus had connections in the city government. I had seen him laughing with the restaurant inspector during the last visit. This required something more strategic. I created a new email account that Tuesday afternoon. Anonymous complaints rarely got the attention they deserved, but a coordinated campaign from multiple concerned citizens might be different. The first email went to the county health department, detailing specific violations with timestamps and photographic evidence. The second went to the state restaurant licensing board. The third went to the local newspaper's investigative reporter who had been writing about food safety issues for years. Then I waited. Wednesday morning brought the first response. The health department scheduled an inspection for the following week. Too slow. Marcus would have time to clean up, hide evidence, coach his staff on what to say. I needed to accelerate the timeline. The newspaper reporter responded that afternoon. Her name was Sandra Chen, and her previous articles suggested someone who took food safety seriously. She wanted to meet. I agreed, but only if she could guarantee anonymity and promise to act quickly. We met Thursday evening at a coffee shop downtown, far from Bellacourt and anyone who might recognize me. Sandra arrived with a digital recorder and a notebook, her expression serious. I handed her a flash drive containing every photograph, every document, every piece of evidence I had gathered. Her eyes widened as she scrolled through the images on her laptop. The expired dairy products, the meat thermometer that hadn't worked in months, the dish towels that were reused for days without washing, the grease trap that hadn't been cleaned since I started working there. Sandra asked careful questions, taking notes about my background, my time at the restaurant, my reasons for coming forward. I explained about the firing, about Marcus's threats, about the systematic nature of the violations. She listened without judgment, occasionally asking for clarification or additional details. By the end of our meeting, Sandra had enough material for a substantial investigation. She promised to contact other employees, verify the information independently, and have a story ready within days. The timing would coincide with the health department inspection, creating maximum pressure. Friday morning, I drove past Bellacourt during the breakfast rush. Through the windows, I could see Marcus moving between tables, all smiles and smooth conversation with customers who had no idea what they were eating. The sight made my stomach turn, but also strengthened my resolve. The health department called that afternoon to confirm Monday's inspection. The timing was perfect. Sandra's story would break over the weekend, creating public pressure before the official investigation began. Saturday brought the first crack in Marcus's facade. A former Bellacourt employee contacted me through social media after seeing my anonymous posts on restaurant worker forums. She had worked there 2 years earlier and left after witnessing similar violations. She had photographs too. More importantly, she had documentation of Marcus explicitly instructing staff to ignore safety protocols during busy periods. Sunday morning, Sandra's article appeared on the newspaper's website and the front page of the print edition. The headline was devastating: "Local Restaurants' Kitchen Horrors. Health Violations Hidden Behind Elegant Facade." The story featured my photographs alongside interviews with 3 former employees, all confirming the systematic nature of the problems. The article included a sidebar detailing specific health code violations, complete with expert commentary from a food safety professor at the state university. Every violation was explained in terms that made the dangers clear to average readers. Cross-contamination risks, bacterial growth potential, temperature abuse protocols. Marcus's phone number was apparently ringing nonstop by noon. I knew this because I had parked across the street from the restaurant, watching the chaos unfold through binoculars. He paced back and forth behind the windows, gesturing angrily while talking on his phone. The lunch crowd was noticeably thinner than usual. The health department arrived Monday morning at exactly 9 o'clock. 2 inspectors, clipboards in hand, wearing serious expressions that suggested they had read Sandra's article. Marcus met them at the front door, his usual charm replaced by nervous energy. I watched from my car as the inspection unfolded. The inspectors spent 6 hours inside, taking their own photographs, collecting samples, interviewing staff members. Marcus followed them around like an anxious shadow, but his presence seemed to make things worse rather than better. The restaurant closed temporarily that afternoon. A notice appeared on the front door, signed by the health department, citing multiple serious violations requiring immediate remediation. The language was bureaucratic, but the message was clear. Bellacourt was unsafe for public consumption. Local television news crews arrived Tuesday morning. I watched from a nearby cafe as reporters interviewed shocked customers, former employees, and health department officials. Marcus appeared on camera briefly, offering vague promises about correcting any problems and ensuring customer safety. His face looked haggard, his usual confidence completely absent. The State Restaurant Licensing Board suspended Bellacourt's operating license Wednesday morning. The suspension was temporary, pending completion of required safety improvements and staff retraining. But the financial impact was immediate and devastating. Every day of closure meant thousands of dollars in lost revenue, with no guarantee of when reopening might be possible. Thursday brought news that 2 of Bellacourt's major investors were withdrawing their support. The negative publicity had made the restaurant toxic to their other business interests. Marcus was reportedly scrambling to find alternative funding while dealing with potential lawsuits from customers who claimed to have gotten sick after recent meals. I received a phone call Friday afternoon from the health department investigator. They wanted to interview me as a witness in their formal investigation. The case was expanding beyond simple health violations into potential criminal charges related to knowingly serving unsafe food. Marcus's systematic ignorance of safety protocols had crossed the line into criminal negligence. The interview took place the following Monday in a sterile government office building. The investigator was thorough and professional, asking detailed questions about my observations, my attempts to raise concerns internally, and Marcus's responses to safety issues. I provided copies of all my documentation, explaining the timeline and context for each piece of evidence. 2 weeks later, Bellacourt's business license was permanently revoked. The health department's final report documented over 30 serious violations, some dating back years. The pattern of negligence was so extensive that the restaurant was deemed incapable of safe operation under current management. Marcus lost everything. The restaurant closure triggered clauses in his lease agreement and supplier contracts. His personal guarantees on business loans meant creditors could pursue his personal assets. Within a month, he was forced to declare bankruptcy and sell his house to cover debts. The criminal investigation continued for another 6 weeks. Marcus eventually pled guilty to multiple health code violations and was sentenced to community service, substantial fines, and permanent prohibition from restaurant management in the state. His conviction became public record, ensuring that any future business ventures would be tainted by his past negligence. I found new employment at a restaurant across town, owned by a chef who took food safety seriously and treated employees with respect. The pay was similar, but the working conditions were dramatically better. Clean equipment, proper food handling, regular health inspections that were welcomed rather than feared. 6 months after my firing, I drove past the former Bellecourt location. The building sat empty with a "for lease" sign in the window. Weeds were growing through cracks in the parking lot. The elegant facade looked shabby and abandoned, a perfect metaphor for the corruption that had festered behind its polished exterior. Sandra Chen contacted me one final time, months later. Her investigation had won a state journalism award for public service reporting. More importantly, it had prompted legislative changes, strengthening health department inspection protocols, and increasing penalties for systematic violations. Other restaurants had cleaned up their operations rather than risk similar exposure. Standing in my new restaurant's kitchen that evening, watching properly trained cooks handle food with appropriate safety measures, I felt a deep satisfaction that had nothing to do with revenge. The system had worked, justice had been served, and somewhere in the city people were eating meals prepared by establishments that took their safety seriously. Marcus had fired me for questioning unsafe practices. In the end, those same practices had destroyed everything he had built. The irony was perfect, but the real victory was simpler. No one else would get sick from food prepared in that kitchen. The taste of justice was better than any meal Bellecourt had ever served.